Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you are watching this. Welcome back again to the Since I Was Young podcast for all things heart of Midlothian. Join you as always is myself, Ewan Ramsey, and Alan Scrimger. We do hope you are all good and well. And why wouldn't you be? We're bringing back a bit of positivity to the podcast this week, finally, after a fucking about 2 months of just utter depression pitch. So yeah, we got some a good headlines to bring you this week. Of course, we are recording a bit at a later date due to my ridiculous the stomach, but we are all good and well now. So we're obviously going to talk about the bounce back positive game, shall we say, which was against Ross County, where we roared to a 6-1 victory at home. So we'll obviously talk a bit about the standouts, talk about the goals, Naismith in general, and how he set up. So we'll talk a bit about that. Obviously, the big news to come for the league in general was the post-match split fixtures. Ours are, I mean, they're not too bad, so we'll dive a bit into them as well. And of course, we will bring a preview to the first of those games, which is going to be the champions, of course, Celtic, where we face them at home on the 7th of May at a 2:15 kickoff. So we will also talk a bit about that to wrap things up. We are recording this on a Friday afternoon, and we will bring this out Monday next week. So if we're referring to things as of next week, we do apologize in advance. But yeah, so that's going to be your podcast for this evening or afternoon. And if you want to check us out via our YouTube page, and if you want to subscribe us as well, please do. And if you want to check us out via our Twitter and all of our other socials as well, please feel free to do so. They will be on screen and in the description as always. So we do hope you enjoy, and thanks for joining. So Alan, positivity as back in the Since I Was Young podcast. Obviously, I believe that when we did our scores for the game as well. We were a tiny bit more positive this time round, and it seemed to actually work. So naturally, we are responsible for getting back on track. So yes, you were of course, at the game as well. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but you said from the offset, from the team was a selection, how we got off from the get go, how the play was quite flowing, more of an attacking was in nature as well. Yeah, I mean, if you want to start us off, let the team sort of line up and take us from there, sir.
Yeah, for sure. I think we asked or I think you asked the question last week about what does an A Smith 11 look like. And when the team news came out, he'd obviously made some changes. He brought in Cochrane back, starting at left back. Atkinson was starting at right back, obviously after Michael Smith getting injured. He had Oda starting out on the right wing and Shanklin playing in the 10. But I think the biggest impact was the midfield. The glorious Austrian Peter Haring back in a starting lineup for the first time in the league since August.
Crazy.
And him next to Devlin, yeah, oh, it was nuts. I started to miss him. The team, when you look at the number of injured players that we've had, this season in general, it's been key players to a spine of a very good team. And you could see when Haring was there was just some kind of assurance in what he was doing, and next to Devlin. And I think I messaged you, I was like, Peter Haring is letting Cammy Devlin just do Cammy Devlin things. And not putting too much responsibility on him. And it worked incredibly well. But yeah, going back to the kind of start of the game, I was there thanks to a friend of the podcast, John, who'll no doubt be listening to this right now. So I thanks again, John, and Ian, his pal, was there as well. So it was nice to meet some new faces and catch up with some old ones. And yeah, like it was funny. There was a lot of positivity, or I felt quite positive, and obviously I was expecting us to get a scrappy win. I was expecting us to, you know, like we said last week, to make hard work of it. But yeah, there was, and even when I got in, like when we got into Tiny, there was a certain kind of vibe, and I don't know if it was just because of the changes that he'd made to the 11, and it was almost like I said previously, that we kind of expected Naismith to make some changes after the derby because a lot of the players in that game let themselves down and didn't deserve a chance against County. And Naismith obviously felt that as well and made changes that, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, they worked incredibly well. But yeah, it felt very positive. And I mean, I've not been to Tiny for a good few weeks, obviously due to work commitments and stuff like that. But it's certainly the vibe and the atmosphere didn't feel like one of a team that hadn't won a game for like 6 weeks or something.
And in that same sense as well, Alan, I mean, you like you mentioned there, like what does like an Naismith kind of setup look like? So obviously, like we scored, like was it three in the opening, what, like 25 or half an hour. At that point, like when I looked at my phone, like generally, like I was like, no, 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 that can't be right. And in that same sense as well. So even like the first goal, like was it just to bring it up, which was scored like and brilliantly taken by was it Cochrane? Would you feel as if like even the build up and kind of in comparison to how we've been like was it building up the like the chances and the play in general, could you like visually see uh, like a difference, or do you think that maybe like Naismith in general has just kind of like pulled in like a lot more it was a positivity in to the squad?
Oh no, there was a definite difference. There was a
Right.
definite difference. And I think I saw it kind of in spells in the Edinburgh Derby as well. I'm going to talk about a man that I've been very, very critical of previous episodes, but I thought he's slowly getting back to something. And Barry Mackay on that left hand side was incredibly wide. He was practically hugging the touchline and then cutting in every so often and getting involved in the middle, but nowhere near as often as he did with previously when we were
Mm.
slating him for doing it. And Oda over on the right hand side. I mean, I'll talk more about him later on, but it was it was just there was a notable difference, and they were so much quicker getting the ball forward. And I mean, all the like obviously I know we'll talk about the first goal, but all of the goals, obviously aside from the penalty, were all very well worked and they were all very well put together goals. It wasn't as if, they were scrappy or anything. But you could definitely see that Naismith wanted the team to just go out and play with a bit of freedom and get the ball forward and be quicker with it. Which obviously paid off. I mean, I know, like I say, sorry, pardon me, we'll talk about all the goals and things, but there obviously is the important caveat that it was Ross County who are bottom of the table. But I expected more from County. I genuinely did. But obviously, I'm delighted that they didn't give any more than that. But yeah, like the first goal was nice bit of link up play, and then Shanklin sort of leaves it. I don't know if Cochrane maybe gave him a shout, and that's the left back popping up on the edge of the box and hitting it with his right foot, and if that doesn't scream a bit of creative freedom, I don't really know what does.
Absolutely. I mean, in that same was it sense about just while we're talking about the fullback. So obviously it was no like it was a secret that both with Cochrane, sorry, like with Cochrane and it was Atkinson as well. Like obviously there was like things like kind of flying about that they'd been like sort of like words said or like between like sort of them and the Robbie as well. Was it like because like I didn't quite understand why Cochrane got dropped when he's been probably one of our most, if not the most, like consistent player we've was it had all year. So would you say that in the back four that we had, like changing from the way that we have been playing, like in terms like was it of a back five essentially? Would you say? I mean, again, like like you said, like we do have to take into account that it was a county, but in that same sense, with the setup that we had, would you feel as if it's a more kind of like more strategic I kind like sort of change like in terms of how we attack, or as you said as well, would you say that it's just about more kind of being a bit more free to like to kind of like it to like express themselves and just to try and like enjoy it, because like that's been his main like sort of like message throughout the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think for me, and it's interesting, it's something I wrote down not long after the game when I got home after visiting a pub after the game, because obviously you got a toast of victory. But came home, did a few little notes here and there. And I think one of the things for me that was so obvious, and it was something that just jumped out at me, was the pairings across the pitch. Like Haring and I've already mentioned Haring and Devlin in the middle, but you had Rolls and Sibic at the back. And yeah, they weren't tested that often, but they did very well when they had to. They were very good with the ball, bringing it out as well. It was almost like, I think later on in the game, Sibic hit a shot from about 30 yards or something, flew over the bar, but you're like, he's got the confidence to do it. Why not? And obviously, Rolls was kind of backing him up. And the fullbacks were helped out by their wingers, which is something that we've not seen for a very long time, particularly on the left hand side with Barry Mackay. And I'm going to mention him again. There was a moment in I think it was the first half, where Barry Mackay runs back, tracks back because the county player nicks the ball, and Barry Mackay tracks back and makes a brilliant tackle to win the ball back. And months ago, you wouldn't have seen that. And I'm not saying that that's a negative on Barry Mackay, but I think it's an indication of he's maybe been told, look, you've got to work harder, you know. And Cochrane was fantastic. They were overlapping each other all day. Obviously, that's what led to Cochrane's goal. The right hand side was interesting for me. I really liked it. Obviously, people that know me know I'm a fan of Nathaniel Atkinson, and I hope it works out for him, but I'm not sure if it will. But it's good to see him getting a little run. Oda in front of him, they worked incredibly well together down the right hand side as well. There was a lot of link up there, and obviously the Haring and Devlin midfield partnership, and then you've got Shankland and Gino as a partnership at the top end of the pitch, and they all just, like you say, they all just looked like they were enjoying themselves, and it was an enjoyable afternoon, and it reflected in the stands because the fans were buzzing. The atmosphere was very good because obviously fans were enjoying what they were seeing. And I think when you talk about what is a Naismith 11, I don't know what a Naismith 11 is going to be against Celtic, but that was a very, very good indication of what we can do at Tynecastle.
Yeah, because like it's interesting that you mentioned that as well, because Naismith mentioned himself that and I actually quite liked the way that he said it, in the sense that you know it's not necessarily going to be the same 11 every single week, like in the sense that there'll be
Yeah.
certain players for certain like occasions where he will bring them in. Even in the sense was we did was win last week, like for certain teams for setting up, you know he will like rotate, and I actually think in the grander scheme of things that that's a good thing, because you know that was the thing that we always said about the Robbie, in the sense that there was kind of no kind of like plan B. There was no a kind of a change of like the like the setup itself, where no matter what team it was, I know that you've got to not be like concerned about how you're playing against, and it's more like for yourself. But would you feel as if like that's a bit more of a better route to take in terms of trying to take something out of the game, like if it be like the old firm Hibs, Aberdeen, or what?
Well, I mean, I think the away games that we've got in the split will kind of take care of themselves. I think the home games, obviously, we'll talk more about it later, but I think the home games are going to be vital, considering those that we're playing against. And if he sets them up like that, I'll be happy. And if they play like that, I'll be happy. I'm not gonna, you know, shout from the rafters that Naismith should get the job permanently because he's beaten Ross County 6-1, but
No.
the nature and the manner of it was very good. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's good to hear him say about talking about having different plans for different teams, and obviously no two teams play the same way in Scottish football, which is true. So it's good to have different options. He was talking about Cool as well. I don't know the article that came out where he was saying, he's been in conversations with Cool and said, I bet you're disappointed you didn't get on against Ross County when we were absolutely coasting it, but there's reasons why. And I like that about Naismith. It's not as if there's just no information. Like, I think a section of Hearts fans want to see Cool play. They want to see what he can do. There's a section of Hearts fans that have written him off because we've not seen him. And I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, funnily enough, on that, because I don't know what he can do because we haven't seen it. It's but he might have something to offer against Celtic. You just don't know. Um, but then, without going down other tangents on that, just to bring it back to the game, talking about the pairings on the pitch, the second goal was as a result of kind of Haring and Devlin both winning the ball back at the same time off the county player. They sort of doubled up on him and won it back, and Devlin brought it out and played a brilliant forward pass. Brilliant pass. Gino, last man defence, cuts in. Brilliant finish.
Top
Absolute
bid.
quality finish. Oh, unbelievable. And then he's celebrating, and then he turns around and obviously sees the offside flags up and it goes to VAR. And I'm sitting in the stand because I was right behind that goal. And I'm sitting there going, that, like, obviously I had no idea whether it was onside or not because of the angle I was at. But I'm sitting there going, please give him this goal because it was an absolute beauty. And I'm like, just let it count. I messaged a friend that was watching it at home, and they said, "Oh, it's marginal. I don't know if they'll give it. Don't know if they'll give it." Watched it back, and it was very, very tight, but delighted that it got given. It took a long time, but VAR takes a long time anyway. But aye, just a very, very good goal from Gino. And he was another one that looked, you know, I'll say it later on, but I'll say it now. Not a single player on that pitch for me got less than a 7 out of 10. And Gino was up there.
So regarding like was it Gino who from the highlights that I watched, like he scored like two fantastic goals. I want to bring it back to like another like kind of like I was a prospect and such. So obviously when we brought in like you Taro Oda, you know we very much said from the get go that he's probably a player for next year in the sense that obviously he's still got to get to grips with how the Scottish game is and this is not like in any way a pop, but for him to get a wee bit more of a grasp was it of the language as well to understand a bit more what he's meant to actually do. He's
Mm-hmm.
one of those players where I kind of see him as a Ben Woodburn, where like I want him to do well, like in that sense. But
Yeah.
like he's young, and the fact that we paid for him to come over from was it Japan must show that there is something there. But obviously, I got to pass it over to the man himself. Is there a player in there, Alan?
There is 100%, 100%, 100%. I am gonna absolutely just, if you don't want to hear me be ridiculously positive about Oda and get ridiculously carried away, just
Yeah.
skip forward past this bit because I have to be honest, he was outstanding. And again, the caveat is it was against Ross County. But for a first start at Tynecastle for him, he was quality. And like you can see that there's a player in there. Um, it's just the little touches and like the ball was getting pinged at him from across the pitch or whatever. And his little touches to bring it down under control and bring other people in, it was really, really good. And I mean, we've seen obviously there's a large contingent of Japanese players at Celtic that have come over from the J League, and you can see the technique and you can see the quality that they have. Yes, they've obviously got adjusted a bit better because probably because there's more of them in the one team and they all know each other and they're all
Yeah.
able to just go in and obviously Postecoglou knows them all. But yeah, he just Oda looked very, very good. He was again, people that have been listening to this for a long time know my preference for a pacey little winger. And Oda seems to have that about him. I think Naismith said after the game, he said the only thing I told him after it was to shoot earlier. Shoot earlier. Don't be so unselfish. Hit a shot when you feel like you've got a chance to hit a shot. Because he didn't. That was the one thing he didn't do, and it was so frustrating. But yeah, it was just a really really good vibe. Every time he got on the ball and he was running at people, like fans in general, like we've said this before, fans want to be excited by what they're watching. They want to be entertained. And I'm not saying that Oda's going to be the next big thing, but he looks a very, very good little player. And to see that performance out of him was very, very good. And he will only get better, as you say. He'll only get better once he settles in and gets adjusted to things. But it seems like Naismith has put an arm around him a little bit and went, right, I'm going to get something out of you. I'm going to help you. And again, I'm not banging the Naismith permanent manager drum, but he seems to have a good relationship with the players and at all levels. Because obviously he was with the B team and stuff like that. And I don't know if that's because Naismith obviously only just recently retired, and also Naismith was a forward himself, so there's maybe an element of that. But yeah, back to Oda, just very very good. The goal, was it the third goal? The header from Shankland.
It was, yes.
Oda crossed it over. Yeah, Oda was in a good position and he crossed it, and it went over everyone, but it was a
Yeah.
good cross. It just was a bit too deep. Cochrane picked it up, recycled it, put it back in, and Shankland's header was very, very good. He was kind of leaning backwards and had to kind of turn around a little bit to like generate the power on it, but it was kind of more of a like a looping header more than a powerful one. But very, very good goal. And Oda was a big part of it as well. So yeah, as I say, the Oda hype is real coming from me. But we'll see what happens. I mean, the last player I hyped up was Nathaniel Atkinson, and he's not really done very much to
Yeah,
to
yeah,
justify that. So it could be the
absolutely.
kiss of death. Who knows? We might never see Oda again now that I've said that.
Oh, Christ Almighty. Well, in that same sense, because it's interesting, like that you brought it up. So obviously, I mean, at this moment in time, obviously, I know that Naismith is maybe considered like a favorite in terms of like for next year, but at this moment in time, I just don't see, it like in the sense that
Hmm.
I think the club in general would maybe want somebody like a wee bit more experience, like seen it, done it, like etc. I just wanted to get your like opinion on it. So it was only just last week that was it a name that was kind of popping up and started with it to do the rounds was a current Watford manager. Was it Chris? Was it Wilder? Now, when that name kind of popped up, I thought, oh, all right, okay,
Mhm.
this sounds interesting. However, with the recent events that I'm sure you've probably heard, where he did an interview not too long ago where he basically spent 10 minutes just absolutely scathing and ranting about the performance of these players. Was it Porteous being one of them. Now, just in the general sense, like, not to get too deep into that because obviously, like, he's at a different club, but would you say that in the terms of how he is and how he's acted throughout this last few weeks, just towards the team himself, is that the like a kind of manager that you could get behind, or would you feel that he's kind of a step up from Robbie in the sense that he wouldn't be the kind of guy that would take responsibility for like a bad performance?
I think, yeah, I mean, I saw the Chris Wilder link come up, and I can understand it. He was linked with Aberdeen, and he ruled himself out of the Aberdeen job because he was obviously looking for a job in England. I actually watched that rant that he gave, and I actually really liked it.
Oh,
You know, I don't think. I mean, Watford are a bit of a circus of a football club, to be honest with you. They hire and fire managers every 6 months down there, which is mental. But English football things. But no, I liked the rant from Wilder, not just because he was slating Ryan Porteous, but just because I thought, you know what, he's being honest, and he's probably gone out and said to the media exactly what he said to the players in the dressing room. And to me, he sounds like a manager that won't take any shit, essentially, won't take below par performances. That's what I got out of it. But I know what you mean, and I get that.
aye,
But I think for me, Wilder would be. I mean, if you're looking at the names that are out there just now, I think Wilder would be my preferred option. But you know, again, I'm not going to bang the Stephen.
aye.
I'm not going to bang the. I nearly said Robbie Nielsen, and it came out Stephen A.
Oh
Smith. Thankfully,
Christ! Imagine the
I'm not
uproar.
going to bang.
Imagine,
I'm
imagine
not
the
going to.
uproar if his name
Oh,
got thrown back in. Oh yeah, I can't.
jeez, oh. No, I mean, as I say, I think Stephen Naismith, whoever the next manager is at Hearts, if it's not Stephen Naismith, I hope that he has a role, be it with the first team or go back to the B team, or maybe he wants to go and be a manager somewhere else and do his own thing, But he certainly, Wilder for me would be an interesting way to go, due to his experience. Obviously, at the English levels, he'll know lots of players, and I'm sure he'll have that in his locker. He's got a good coaching team with him as well, so that would be helpful. But yeah, as I say, I was very impressed with Naismith as well. I have to be honest. During the game, the whole of the first half, he barely sat down once. He was standing on the sidelines for the 90 minutes. He was standing on the sidelines, barking at players, shouting at them all. Just giving them instruction and sort of giving them encouragement. And there was a moment the ball went out for a throw in, and Naismith ran and grabbed it and threw it to Cochrane, who was probably about 5 yards further down the touchline from him. And it was like trying to have that urgency and trying to have that intensity to say, right, keep going, go again, go again. And we're so used to just seeing managers just sitting in the dugout, just watching things unfold and maybe getting up occasionally to shout at a referee. But Naismith just seemed to be very much involved and very much in the middle of it. And obviously, maybe that's just down to his coaching style. But if you're talking about permanent managers, there's no, I mean, we can't talk about it right now because
No, yeah.
we don't know. I'd love to say, yeah, let's get Chris Wilder in tomorrow. And of the names I've seen, he's certainly my preferred option. But there could be somebody completely from left field that we've not even heard of, that's not even been linked, that could end up coming in the summer. So at the moment, Stephen Naismith is the man, and certainly, as I say, the Ross County performance was very good,
Hmm.
and that counts in his favour.
Well, just to kind of.
But I want to say,
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
no, no, no. I was just going to say, as well as that, like Naismith, like I mentioned, he has a relationship with the players, and you can see that.
Hmm.
So I personally think at the end of the season, whatever happens between now and the end of the season, I think Stephen Naismith will get interviewed for the manager's
Oh
job
yeah.
out of courtesy, I think. Because he's
I,
there. They're not going to say, right, Stephen, thanks very much, away you go. And I think Stephen Naismith has a lot of positives in his corner because he knows the club already, knows the players, knows the place, understands the fan base. So that could count in his favour. And obviously, we've recently handed new contracts to three young players, one of them being today, James Wilson, the young kid that was being linked with clubs down in England.
Mm.
He's signed for 3 years with Hearts, which is amazing. Bobby McClucky, who's a defender, he's signed, and the midfielder whose name has completely gone out of my head. But yeah, there's three good young players there that have all been given new contracts, and I think Naismith probably had a bit of an influence in that as well.
So just getting back a bit, was it to the last of the game, Alan? Another man on form continually continues to show us both up as well. I believe that's 25 goals in all competitions, 22 in the league. I may be wrong, like on that one. So if I have made a mistake, please feel free to correct me in the comments as well. But a hat trick, like again, what can you say, Alan? What can you say? I mean, it begs the question as well. If I am right, and if he has scored 25 in all competitions, I said when he got to around 15 or 16, I said that this man will hit 30 goals by the end of the season. Can he do it? I want a simple yes or no, not a it could happen. It could happen. I want you to make a concrete decision right here, sir.
I'm gonna say he's gonna hit 27.
That's
I
not
think
why I asked you.
27,
That's
28.
not why I asked
I
you. Is
don't
he going to hit it or not?
know, but he's not gonna be far off.
How
Is my
dare
is
you
my
let the fucking masses come for you, sir? Absolutely.
No, I mean he scored another penalty, didn't he?
I know, right?
Who loves
Because
a
that's
penalty?
all it
Um,
ever scores, eh?
yeah, it was about the penalty, like just on that. Again, like I said about the offside goal,
Mm,
I don't even understand why the referee needed VAR to give that penalty. Like it was a stonewall penalty, as blatant a penalty as you're going to see.
mm.
Was the boy? I think it was they had a 16-year-old defender or 17-year-old defender, and he stuck his leg out, and Shankland went over it. And yeah, it was a stonewall penalty. Ross Laidlaw, the county goalkeeper, former Hibs goalkeeper, so it was pleasing to see him chucking the ball in or picking it out 6 times anyway. Um, but the keeper, he went the right way.
I
He went the
know.
right way. So I'm sitting there going, oh, I don't know if he's going to get this one. I mean, I was confident he was going to score, but when I saw the goalkeeper go in, I thought, fuck, he's guessed the right way. He's saving it. But obviously, went in last kick of the first half, 4-0 half time. And I said it to the lads at half time that it was like watching a Burley Hearts team, having a game buried by halftime because it was done. It was done at 3-0, but putting that icing on the cake with a penalty to make it four, it was like watching a George Burley Hearts where he used to just send the team out and they'd blow teams away in the first half and then just coast through the second half, which is kind of what happened
Yeah.
against County. But yeah, Shankland continuing to score goals and make us both look like absolute wallies for doubting him in any way, shape, or form. So aye, but I mean, as I say, I'm not going to complain about it. He won Player of the Year at the Player of the Year awards. If that was ever in any doubt that he was going to win that,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, it's you have that confidence when he goes to step up to take a penalty. And it was funny, like he literally when he got fouled, he got up and he just grabbed the ball and he was like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, it's a penalty."
Yeah.
So like VAR took forever, but he knew he was like, "It's going to be a penalty." The ball was practically on the spot before the VAR call was even made. And it goes back to the whole VAR conversation, which I'm not going to have because
Let's
we've had it
not.
before. No, let's not. It completely ruined Gino's celebration for his second goal, for the first goal rather that he scored, because they had to wait for so long to prove he was onside, and the penalty took forever to give, and it was a stonewall penalty. So it kills moments. It kills moments in a stadium, and that is so disappointing
Mm.
when it comes to the atmosphere. But yeah, halftime came. There was a real sort of sense of, certainly in me anyway, there was a sense of, did that really just happen? Like, have we really just seen that level of performance? Because it was fantastic.
Mm.
Certainly wasn't expecting it, but
No.
was absolutely delighted with the intensity of the first 45 minutes more than anything else.
Hmm. So, I mean, we could I kind of dissect like the for goals as well. I mean, like was it Gino's? Like was it a second goal was an absolute cracker as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you could argue the fact that if Oda did choose to shoot, or was it quicker, we might not have was it scored that goal. So just to kind of
Aye.
look forward as we like sort of move to the split, like sort of was it fixtures just before we talk about that. So like after the result for you personally, obviously, like I mean, we were expecting like the next end of the day for the Rangers to go up to Aberdeen and to take all 3 points, but sadly, it went the other way. Which still like sort of has that small the gap there of 5 points with 15 to play for. Um, Obviously we will. Well, we may as well was it talk about it now. So obviously, I'll go through the split fixtures just now. For those of you that don't know which ones are which, so starting on the first game, which is the 7th of May, which will be Celtic at home. Next one, we are away to St Mirren on the 13th of May. After that, we are back at home to Aberdeen on the 20th. Next up, we are away to Rangers on a Wednesday night, 7:45 a kickoff. And lastly, but no least, we will end this season's campaign with a early kickoff of 12:30 in the final Edinburgh Derby of the season at Tynecastle. So just going back to the original question, Alan, you know, with that gap still, yeah, granted, like it's not a huge gap, but it's still like a big enough. If Aberdeen were to slip up like in one game, that like it won't affect them like drastically as such because they seem to have been on a like from the start of the season starting dreadfully, and they've seemed to have a comeback like kind of later on in the season, which I mean you can't fault. Was it? It was Barry Robson for the job that he's done. So after the game, like against County, or where's your head at? Do you feel as if it's right? The the main focus shouldn't be on third in terms of just to kind of putting on that kind of pressure on to the players. Do you think as a case of look, we just kind of see out the rest of the season and we'll see how it goes and then we'll restart again the next year, or do you still think that third should be the main uh was a priority, or just European football like in general?
I mean, I said it last week that I feel like third place is away, to be honest, and even more so when Aberdeen beat Rangers at Tawdry. But there is still that part in the back of my head that's saying it's not mathematically impossible. And until it's mathematically impossible, you never know. Obviously, it's up against us, but Aberdeen's first fixtures and their split fixtures are quite interesting. I just pulled them up just to remind myself. They've got so our first game's obviously Celtic at Tynecastle. They've got Rangers at Ibrox, which is by no means a gimme. Rangers will obviously want to get a bit of revenge, having lost against them not too long ago. Then they have Hibs at home, and then they play us away, obviously. So I think the opening three games for both sides could be very important. Um, Put it this way, I'd much rather have Celtic at home than I would away from home.
Oh,
If
100%.
we play with an intensity and an aggression like we've seen under Naismith. But again, you're going from Ross County to Celtic. You know, it's bottom of the table to top of the table, so
Mm.
you can't really compare the two. But yeah, I mean, I don't. I think there's got to be an element of, for now, like I understand Stephen Naismith talking about third place and saying, it's not where we're thinking about, it's not what we're thinking about, it's not what we're thinking about. And he's probably right to dress it up like that, because if we focus on our own fixtures and our own performances, then there's points there for us to get. Um, Essentially, we have to pick up 5 more points than Aberdeen do in the next 5 games.
Mm.
Is that possible?
Mm.
Time will tell. I don't know if it is. But I would listen if somebody said to me right now, you're going to finish fourth, I'd take it. Would it be a
Yeah.
disappointing end to the season? Yes, because of the fact that we were so far ahead in third. But fourth is still European football of some sort. It doesn't guarantee you group stage football, but it puts you into the playoffs. So we'd play 2 playoff rounds to get into the Conference League. So we'd have to play 2 fixtures before a group stage would begin, whereas obviously last year it was just the one.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, we like I say, Stephen Naismith has to treat the next 5 games as an addition for him to try and be the permanent manager, whether he wants it or not. Like that for me has to come from Naismith. The players have to be treating it as we're going out there to impress a new manager, potentially, be that Chris Wilder or anybody else. There was obviously, as I said earlier, it was amazing to see Peter Haring back. There was an interview that he gave earlier in the week where he was talking about he was happy to stay if the club want him to stay, which would be fantastic news. But we'll wait and see on that one. And yeah, it's as I say, to start off with Celtic at Tynecastle, we've limited their allocation to I think 1,200, which is probably 1,200 too many if you ask me. Um, yeah, it's like we said at the start. There's a little bit more positivity than there was in previous weeks. Will that
Mm.
translate to us going on some sort of run and getting third place? I don't think so. But what the win against Ross County does is it puts that run of, was it 6 games or 7 games in a row that we didn't win?
Yeah.
It puts that to bed, and it's like, right, let's start again now and see what Naismith does for the rest of the season. I personally would like to see him bleed some young players in if we get to a stage where the games are meaningless. But again, that'll depend on scenarios that will include Aberdeen and obviously Hibs as well. You know, as much as I don't want to put them in there, they are still in with a shout. I
Mm-hmm.
think I don't expect them to be above us. I think if the season, the way I think it'll finish is Aberdeen will be third and we'll be fourth. That's the way I see it going. And there's part of me that would be happy with that, but equally another part of me that goes, nah, it's not what you want. You want
Mm.
third place, and to lose it to Aberdeen in the manner that we threw it away would be a bit of a downer, to be honest.
I agree with you,
But the, the,
like
the
on that
split
one.
the split fixtures will take care of themselves, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of go on to the last bit, like sort of was you mentioned there, Alan. So the first game, which will be on the 7th of May, a week as we record this on Sunday. It's a bit of a difficult one because obviously, if I'm right in saying they can't win they can potentially
They
win
win the league
the
with,
league at Tynecastle if Rangers lose and if they
yeah.
win, right?
I think Celtic just need 3 points. I don't
Right,
think it
okay.
matters what Rangers do, to be
Yes,
honest.
yes, yes. So obviously they'll be up in high spirits, like just to get the league like sort of wrapped up. So in regards to that, both teams have got was it something to play for. But do you think it makes a real difference? And I'm not saying this to put down us, like it's more in regards was it to them. But do you think that it being at time the castle puts any a kind of difference on it? Like because obviously the last time we had played them at home, yeah, granted Bayar played a pivotal role, but it did end in a 4-3 defeat, so we obviously weren't far away. But from your opinion, does being at home make any sort of difference?
think it does. I think it does. I think, as I said, the fact that we've limited their allocation as well, hopefully will make a difference. The one thing that I want to just mention is that obviously Celtic have a reduced allocation. But at that game that you were talking about, there were Celtic fans in the home end.
Mm,
So don't know how they managed to source tickets for that, but they did. If you are a Hearts season ticket holder and you give your ticket to a Celtic fan, what the fuck are you playing at?
mm-hmm,
To put it in the nicest possible terms. I would want Tynecastle to be packed to the rafters for that game with home supporters,
100%.
because the team needs it. Celtic will go there wanting a party. They'll go there wanting to win because obviously 3 points gets them the title. They'll be bouncing off the walls. And as I said on Twitter not too long ago, the last time a team came to Tynecastle and wanted a party was Hibs, and that was that infamous relegation derby.
Mm-hmm,
We beat them and they ended up getting relegated with us. So, if we could spoil Celtic's title party, it would be quite nice.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, talking about predictions and stuff because we'll move on to that, but I don't see it. As
Back to
amazing as
normality.
County
Here we go.
was,
Yeah.
oh, as amazing as Ross County was, it was brilliant, but it was Ross County and they were rotten. Celtic are very good and they have that extra, you know, motivation of winning the league
Mm.
on coronation weekend and all this
Oh,
nonsense.
don't even fucking. And that's a
Personally,
thing as well. If I see any Union Jacks just for the sake of the Celtic fan, just to wind them up, fucking leave it out. Please leave it the fuck out.
I agree. I agree. There's an element of it for me that I would actually quite like Celtic to just throw the game against us because then they can win it at Ibrox the week after, and I just think that'd be fucking hilarious.
That'd be fucking hilarious and all.
But I think, yeah. Listen, it'll be very very interesting again to see what Naismith does
Mm,
when we play Celtic. I feel slightly more positive, but still, a reality is that probably Celtic will win
mm.
because they have the extra motivation of winning the league. I'm gonna go, and it's the thing is, it's a Sunday lunchtime. It's a Sunday lunchtime game.
Well, is it?
I hope
I mean,
Tynecastle's
is that?
bouncing.
I started it in dropped it. I mean, is it 2:15? So,
Oh yeah. Oh sorry, I was looking at it thinking it was 12:15, not 2:15. Sorry, ignore me. Even then, still earlier than three
aye.
o'clock. It's on Sky as well, so there'll be that element. But I just want to see us go out and have a go. Like, that, as I say, we did it against County. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute I want us to go out and score six against Celtic. I would absolutely die if we did. But I think the priority is just to go out and play with a bit of pride and be aggressive on the front foot and try to unsettle them. Just try to get in their faces and make something happen. Because we've done it before to Celtic, at Tynecastle. We get in their faces, we wind them up. It's a scrap. It's a scrap. And if we can reduce it to that, you never know. You might have a chance. But as I say, I think Celtic, with their little bit of extra motivation that they'll have,
Mm.
will be enough to get them over the line, unfortunately. Uh, Scoreline wise, I think it'll be a tight one. I'm going to go for a. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a 3-2 win for Celtic, but I'm going to go for it to be quite a tight game. I don't know where that positivity and confidence is coming from, but
Do you have
I feel like
access?
we'll.
Do you have access with to my mind? Stop taking my score. Was it predictions, mate? We need to turn this around. Like sort of.
Well, I mean,
So I'm always going first, mate. Jesus. Okay, what? I'll go
well, I
one
mean,
bit.
you can give us scores if you want.
I'll go one better. So I'll go for the same scoreline because last time 4-3 Hearts. No, no, no. Um, yeah, like I do agree that there's a part of me that I think Celtic will probably pull through it, but I don't think it's going to be as easy as they think it is. Like obviously, I know that like again, I don't want us to kind of get too carried away from the win like against County, but at the same time, obviously that would have put a wee bit more, confidence back in to the squad, and to have that little bit of belief, just what's at stake for Celtic as well, to kind of spoil that, might give a bit more a kind of edge for us to actually go and get something. So in that regard, I'm actually going to go for a 2-2 draw.
Fair
Aye,
enough. I think
aye.
a brief point as well is Stephen Naismith absolutely fucking hates Celtic. So
There you go. So,
if
like,
you can't fire up the players to have a go into that game, Naismith, a former Rangers man, infamously stamped on the balls of, was it Scott Brown when he
it
played
was
for
Scott
Hearts?
Brown. I'm
I
a
mean,
hundred
Naismith was
percent,
that
Alan.
picture of him.
100%.
So,
He is playing Andy Halliday that game. 100%.
oh yeah, can you imagine?
100%.
But I'll call it a victory. I'll call it a victory if we keep every man on the pitch.
Oh, mate, for sure, for sure. Well, we would obviously
Naismith's gonna get sent off.
him and the holidays, like fucking. But yes, in that sense as well, we would love to hear what your score predictions will be uh, for the Celtic game. We would also love to hear your like opinions on who you think would be in the hot seat for next with season as well, and how, I mean, it's a question that I never got round to asking you, Alan, but it will be a good one to shout out. Was it to do? Was it the Twitter users like as well from these 5 games and where they are at? We would love to hear how many points we will accumulate throughout those 5 games, and where do you think we will finish in the league. So that being said, I think it's come to the end of this. It was an episode of the Since I Was Young podcast. So thank you to everyone who has watched. It is always appreciated. And if you aren't subscribed to the YouTube page, please think about subscribing. And if you want to get in contact with us via our socials as well, you are more than free to do so. And yeah, for all those that are going and with to the game next Sunday as well, we do hope you have a good one. And from myself and Alan, we do hope you have a good week leading up to that. From us both, you all take care and see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.